Today we are super excited to have on our podcast Steve Ward for the second time. Welcome back. And his co-authors, Madelyn and April, who are coming out with their most recent book, 2100 Plus Inexpensive Ideas for Play and Intrinsic Motivation. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
I'm happy to have you guys back. And I'd love if you could start just by introducing yourselves, telling us a little bit about you.
I'll be quick because I have introduced myself here before.
True.
I'm Steve Ward, Whole Child Consulting. I have special interest in social repertoires and additional learner repertoires, interest in shaping behaviors. Some of the things that are a little more, a little bit less frequently talked about. I guess maybe that's what makes them more interesting to me. So I'm done.
I'll go next. I'm April Dyal. I graduated from the University of South Florida. I have similar interests as Steve does, but also more on the play side. And then I'm done too.
I'm Madelyn Vickery. I have worked with Steve for quite some time, so I would say that I have a lot of similar interests as him as well. And it's been nice having him as a mentor to really develop understanding of everything that he's given.
Awesome.
It's so great to have you on. We just gotten a question in our mentorship not too long ago about what to do if you've got a child who isn't really, liking anything you're trying to provide. So can't find any functional reinforcers, can't really tap into that motivation. And then, we were talking about your book. I went, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So I actually can't wait to read this myself.
Oh, thank you.
Do you want to tell us a
How
little bit
would you
about
answer
it?
the question?
I'll forward you the link. You can answer.
Right. Yeah. The book would be one place to look for some ideas for that. I will start off with congratulations to the person having the question, recognizing that there is a need for something to be done differently. So at least, this teacher, professional parent is not going to continue trying to use ineffective consequences as reinforcers. The first thing is try something different. Just explore things you haven't done before. Rotate the things you did 2 years ago and see if they're fresh again. I'll give one more bit and I'll pass it on to my co-authors to see if they have some other bits they want to add in. One of the parts that is a little bit deeper, I think, is that people, even some really skilled behavior analysts, sometimes err in the sense of wanting to use something as a reinforcer, as a consequence in the pre-MAC arrangement for a low probability behavior. Something the kid is not so inclined to do, and they're trying to reinforce when like, oh, let's, I don't know, just top of my head, pom-poms. All right, so we have a younger kid maybe, and they're going to try pom-poms, and those have been a reinforcer, but they're not a reinforcer for handwriting. They'd only be a reinforcer for like looking and reaching and imitating and asking. Simpler, higher probability behaviors. And putting them as the consequence for uninteresting behaviors tends to decrease that range, right? Because everything costs something. So maybe I'll just kind of sit here instead of doing all these low probability things to earn something.
Such a good point. I think about the training that I do in terms of reinforcement. And one of the things that affects reinforcement is, the magnitude of reinforcement. And it's, sometimes you don't really understand, well, what do you mean by magnitude, or what do you mean by the effort of reinforcement? And you're right. Like, okay, so you know what, I'm used to doing a lot of these high probability responses and I get your praise. Praise isn't enough for the handwriting because that's super difficult for me. Or pom-poms are fluffy and they're really fun, but you know what, I'd rather just not do handwriting. So such a good point. Yeah, that you've got to think about the activity first.
Yeah, big part of it.
I think to add to that a little bit, I think it would be good to take a step back and kind of observe your learner. What are they engaging in? What do they enjoy? You can put several different stimuli in front of them, see what they gravitate to first before you go and you try to put a task in front of it.
Yeah, I was
Cool.
going to say, you have to ask yourself which of these components is most enjoyable for this learner if, they're engaging with whatever activity, and then just begin brainstorming those new play activities or ideas from there.
I was working with a learner the other day, and reinforcement is tough, and he doesn't love a lot of things. And I realized that the reinforcement was me, and it wasn't an actual thing. So like I had this in my hands. I had just a cup full of air in my hands, and I said, oh, I've got something in here. I mean, it could have been a block. It could have been anything. It could have been probably a worm. I'm not going to give someone a worm unless it's a gummy worm, but I've got something in here, and they looked at it, and then, whatever they did, I went, oh, look. And I opened my hands, and there was nothing in my hands, but I made it up. Look it's a pretend blah, blah, blah. Do you want it? Do you want to smell it? Look, it's a flower. Do you want? And just my tone of voice, just my enthusiasm was enough. And I think that's sometimes what therapists don't understand is that someone could work for a pom-pom and it's, hey, here you go, because I like the texture, I like the feel, and I want to play with it by myself. And other people need to work for that pom-pom because it's related to you. And this pom-pom's so cool, I'm going to tickle you with it, or whatever it is, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Some of our kids, they want to do the hiding games, which shows like that's one of the ultimate proofs. I think I put that in somewhere in the introduction in the book, so it's fresh in my mind. They want this plastic dinosaur, but the process is a really good example of intrinsic motivation. The process of finding the dinosaur was actually, for some kids, more fun than having the dinosaur. Right. And when that process becomes the fun, then it's like, great, we don't have to worry about candy and cavities and all this other stuff and have a time on the iPad. We're finding things. So we know that's the important component of the play.
I love those suggestions, but I also know that something I come across a lot in a school setting is that we're in a classroom. And so we're limited with the things that we can offer them. Like there aren't always toys, or there aren't always, activities. So what are some ways that you can suggest, maybe like looking at the environment that you're in and building that motivation with what you have?
Right. We can't always be loud.
Yeah.
All of those things are true. I'll limit this part to 20 seconds because it's an article that I might not finish writing. So I can't say when it might come
To
out.
be continued.
But, to be continued. I've started getting responders to a questionnaire, and I don't think I have enough yet, about the social validity of different strategies being used in classrooms. And taking it from the teacher's perspectives, the aide's perspectives, the superintendent's perspectives. They're not so keen on kids in a regular ed third grade classroom having candy every 5 minutes for doing work. They're like, nope, that doesn't happen in where we are. So there is some social validity questions that we're not used to asking ourselves about that. I think that puts the onus that much more on us to be able to present the actual academic expectations or social expectations in a way that itself is as much fun as possible or very surmountable. One more bit and I'll turn it over so I don't hog all of the time with it. One of the ways of making things that if they're not everything is going to be fun. I can't sell it that, hey, everyone make everything fun. That's dishonest. It's not everyone's going to have a great time doing everything in a class of 1 to 20, especially. But we can put in some loops, some feedback loops where we help our learner be in touch with clear indicators of whether they met goals in, like, as an example, short-term timings. Those lend themselves really nicely to, did I get above the line in my 30-second timing? It only took 30 seconds. I feel great if I got above the line. So we don't necessarily have to have pom-poms shaking all around in the middle of a classroom.
I love that intrinsic motivation. There you go. Like, that's great.
I mean, I think that this is an opportunity for the teacher or the instructor to also, make them pair themselves with that reinforcement and have fun, show some enthusiasm.
Yeah.
What? We can be enthusiastic?
Maybe not all day, all the time,
Right.
You can have fun with your job. What?
but how dare you guys?
Yeah. And, over time, enough of these interesting experiences become generative, and then it's easier and easier to learn new things and accept new skills and variation.
Mm-hmm. And I think what you said, April, earlier about notice the learner and like look at what they're interested in. And I think so often we get so stuck in the typical, tangible reinforcers. And I get staff who say, well, they're so attention seeking and all they want is to talk to me. And like, I offer them a video or I offer them a game and they don't want it. I'm like, well, look at their reinforcer. That it's you, like it's the attention. So I think it helps us to think about like really getting to know the learner and trying to use the things that may seem like disruptive or may seem like challenges as reinforcers because those they already want. So let's use those in building up, that repertoire.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, and if you really think about it, if you're the reinforcer, it doesn't get any more inexpensive than that.
Totally. Just tiring, very tiring.
That's fair.
Yeah, you have to spread yourself around if you're with more than one kid. You have to spread yourself around that way and build some tolerance of your attention being shared and diverted and things like that a little bit. But yeah, other than that, it's free as long as you have a chance to rest after work.
I think about this even from a supervisor standpoint, in terms of attention, right? So what is motivation for staff to listen to us, right? And a lot of the time it's our attention. And how do we give as a supervisor, how do we give our attention to our supervisees or not even supervisees, just people who work for us, right? And making sure we're not spreading ourselves thin too, but that's a whole other rabbit hole. Maybe that can be your next book.
There we go.
Well, I know, Steve, and your background in play and all of that, but April and Madelyn, what brought you into, like, what do you do beyond this that brought you into being interested in play and motivation? And tell us a little bit about that.
I think that in all honesty, I've always been interested in play. It's one of the reasons why I don't want to say one of the reasons why I got into this field, but one of the reasons why I've worked with children for a couple decades now. And then being able to incorporate it back into your career, there's nothing better. I mean, to walk into work and to know that you're going to get to play with someone in a meaningful way for yourself and for them is all I really needed in life. So I guess to answer your question, I have always been into play and having fun. I was going to say, don't you love being, telling people what your job is? My standard answer was, oh, I work with kids with autism. But I think our standard answer needs to be, well, I play for a living. Yeah. I mean, honestly, the bigger obstacles I run into is being asked like, well, what are you doing right now? It looks like you're just playing. And I'm like, oh no, I can walk you through each and every little step that I'm taking in this play to incorporate skill building. It just may look like a facade of play, but it's all about fun.
Right. And I think one of the things is motivation. It's very powerful and it can strengthen so many learners' repertoires. And ultimately, over time through this play, you're building a history of positive experiences. And it's more enjoyable and you get more responding in return. And you're reaching a learner who ultimately they have not been so reachable before you introduce these play ideas and identify the motivation.
Yeah, I love that. I also think one of the things that we struggle with probably with play is that our kids tend to not be interested in play. So, and we see like what you both said, there's so much value to like expanding their play and teaching through play. So how do you balance that challenge where you get, a learner who really just wants to play with one thing in the same way all the time, and may not be naturally motivated to like expand their play or share their play or go back and forth with play? How do you expand that for them while also keeping their interest in mind, because they don't want to do that, so there's that balance of like they're not motivated naturally to do that, but you want to build on that.
Right. Great question. I'll debrief again. It depends partly on the age, and it depends partly upon how intense their interest is in that one thing. I think the obvious example for the one thing would be the iPad. That's one of the most common things that kids will want to spend maybe most of their possible waking time on if they can. A big part of that challenge is that whatever else we bring in for a kid who's really, really into the iPad, whatever else we bring in is automatically irrevocably compared with the iPad. So everything pales because, hey, that's not iPad, right? So one of the things we'll do if we have a lot, most usually, if we have a lot of room for growth in expanding their interests and getting some basic social things going, one of the things we'll do is that'll, just practice being calm and tolerant of losing access for a moment and for 2 moments and, 4.5 moments, and getting that tolerance built up so that there's a window of opportunity to build other things in. Another way thinking about it, and I'll end on this point, if I'm thinking about, let's say someone in their mid-teens and they have 1 or 2 interests and there's no real natural social interest right now. Well, it's not socially valid and it's unfair. I don't need to make them look like other 15-year-olds look because they want to play games with other people. They don't have to play basketball, right? That's fine. That's their choice.
Right.
But I will be looking for establishing a comfortable understanding of some of the things that, like, you don't just wake up, play with the iPad, someone feeds you while you're playing with the iPad, and then you still have the iPad, then you go to bed. Like there's going to be cleaning yourself. There's going to be helping to prep your meals. There's going to be some things built in, and the iPad is heavily available in between those times. And I'm looking at some of those things. This is why I needed to add to the title of the book, that it's not just all play. Some is also intrinsic motivation. So the steps of getting ready to put some things away that we needed to do. We're putting the vacuum cleaner in the closet now. That's going to be pretty naturally motivating, as that's one of the last steps that comes before 45 minutes of unimpeded iPad time, where you grab your charger, and that's part of the chain. We build up these increasingly complex chains that are maintained by the consequences inherent in the chain, leading to the iPad as your touchstone for the day.
So it's like completing a task becomes motivating because it means this is done. I can move on to the next thing.
Yep, exactly. But not so much not like, okay, give me your iPad, do this work, have your iPad back. Give me your iPad, do this work, have your iPad back. You can only do some of that. If someone's really passionate about the iPad, we can make a little bit of ground that way. And I'll stop there before I talk for the next 20 minutes. So.
Yeah, I mean, I can add to that a little bit because I've actually experienced this exact same scenario with a teenager. His main reinforcer was his phone and watching videos on his phone. So what did I end up doing was I ended up trying to like integrate myself into the situation. And I'd peek over and I'd be like, what are you watching? And I noticed that he was watching a lot of videos that had songs or even sounds of roller coasters, that kind of stuff. And so in between, when he was able to put down the device, I would make those sounds. I would start singing those songs and then I would like stop, or I change the words. And this way I was working with his intrinsic motivation and building in some social.
Great.
Yeah.
I would say a lot of it is also about the presentation of, the material or whatever it may be. You have a learner that may enjoy task completion, but doesn't initiate the task. So, how do we present this, or has difficulty making choices or transitioning. So maybe you put a list of activities inside of a balloon on some paper and blow it up. And he really loves cause and effect. So he pops the balloon and what activity did you get? Things like that.
I'm totally stealing that. That is awesome.
Eddie has dozens of ideas like that one. They're great. I was blown away.
Wow. It's so creative. But I think also it's something so many of us struggle with, is like the creativity and the fun and just being naturally engaging with play. And I'm curious if you have any suggestions, like as we train new BCBAs, what would you suggest? How do we bring that out in people? How do we get our supervisees to be more invested in these types of things and being creative and being engaging? Because that's really how you reach, the kids.
Sure,
Yes.
I'm going to answer this one. Just read their book and steal all their ideas.
Hey,
Yes, please do.
Step 1. Now what's step 2?
We'll have you answer the rest of the questions for us. Thank you. There's a lot of things. And of course, most clinics and schools and people that do value the play are using the BST approach as part of it. Let me model, let's talk through it. You try it, I'll coach you as you're doing it. And of course, that's a very valid way to go. I find that we can sometimes enhance that by supplementing it with really kind of like our feedback loops for the learner. Look at that, you made your 30-second goal for the rate of behavior X, whatever it was. So you can feel good about that. You can log it somewhere. I want my teachers to be taking data on the wins. And I define a win as, by the kid as something that's really achievable. They approached you for 3 steps. They made some eye contact for a moment, whatever. I give some small examples. If I get them measuring the wins in real time as much as possible, then they can see their successes. And then I'm hopefully creating that feedback loop. There's a lot more examples, of course, of where that should go as this evolves.
Using their intrinsic motivation and tapping into if data is motivating, which we hope it is.
Yeah, hopefully so. As we come by and say, well, look at that data, right? They're interested in doing well with us.
True.
Presumably we have that part started, then
Pair
yeah,
it with praise.
Attention for that. Yeah.
I think that you can use that data to kind of broaden their awareness of their own behaviors, and that then can transform into intrinsic motivation. Oh, wow, I'm doing a great job. Oh, look at that. This kid's actually looking at me now. Oh, that's never happened, right?
Yeah. Or, do a Steve Ward competency of expanding interest and have him tell you, so what exactly is the motivation here? And looking at the learner and looking at it from a different perspective, not just the play, but what is continuing this? And, having to answer within 10 seconds or you ask another one.
What's in it for them to respond? Such a good point. So you're in play, you do this all the time, but what made you decide to write this book?
Yeah, good question. I think it's been an ongoing challenge to get creativity, to your guys' questions. How do we get people to be creative? And there's a lot of institutional reasons that people might sort of fall towards, let me run the program, have the reinforcer time, log the data. There's a lot of institutional reasons that can start to happen. And sometimes the creativity is just not encouraged enough. As it is getting encouraged, as we're encouraging people like this is important, and hopefully they act like they believe us when we tell them this in person, then we still see sometimes where they're really trying to get something going, but they just don't know what else to do with something, right? We're just pushing on the swing. It's like pushing is nice, but we don't want the same exact interaction over and over and over for a very long time. It's not as productive as it could be. So as we encourage their creativity, and there's sometimes still a struggle, then this book was we were sitting around talking and saying, man, if I had this kid at this place, I could be doing this, that, and that. And basically in like 2 minutes, we had 15, 18 ideas of what we would do with a body of water. And we just thought, well, why not just write that down? Write down. It seemed like an easy idea to get started. Let's just write down all the things we can do with things that are in the house and in a clinic and everything. Be as creative as we
I can imagine it would be so fun to write that. Just the 3 of you sitting around going, okay, now what? Oh, I have this idea. Oh, what about this? Oh my, I've never done that before. I've got to try that one. Yeah.
And I love that it sounds like it's everything that you can use like tomorrow. You don't need a lot of like training. It's just like, here's some great ideas, which like will, enhance your sessions right away.
Yeah, for sure. It's meant to be very easily understood. There was a few points in there that April and Maddie put in some really creative things. And I was like, I don't understand what it is how this game works. And then we got some help, especially from April's husband, Oscar, doing some nice graphics for us. We're getting some videos put up at Learner Repertoires. So there will be some nice models available for people that struggle the way I did reading the descriptions in the first place of some of the games.
I love that. So one of the most of our audience, I would say, is new to the field, newly minted BCBAs, or we have, even for the experienced BCBA, we always like to ask our guests, what is some advice that you would have to offer a newly minted BCBA, or share just some good advice that someone has given you along the way?
my standard response that I've gotten from mentors as well is make sure that you get input from multiple sources, whether that's different authors you like reading, different podcasts you like listening to, someone at the job with more experience than you, get input from multiple sources.
Love that.
Yeah, I think mine would be, don't be afraid to jump in and get your hands dirty. Providing that oversight with a hands-on approach would 100% be my advice. And don't be afraid to get out there and be silly.
I think it's so true. And so often we feel like, well, now, we're the supervisor or we're the BCBA, so we get more removed from the clients. When really, like, don't be afraid to just get in there, and your value is going to be in the modeling and in the training. So I think that's so important. So thank you. Madelyn, what about you?
I would say really, hold on to that supervisor or that mentor that pushes you and, to grow and analyze and problem solve and, gives that feedback, and really take that feedback. And yeah.
Maddie's exceptional at taking the feedback.
And applying it for sure.
I love that. Yeah. Keep your supervisors close and your mentors close, even closer. So how can people learn more about you or, purchase your book when it's available? Let us know. How's that?
Thank you for the question. I have a website, wholechildconsulting.com. I always like to point out it's whole with a W, of course. Makes a lot more sense than the other spelling. And as I said, we're putting up, make sure I get this right, April, at Good Learning Repertoires. Is there a .com with that?
No, because that's on Instagram. It's the handle.
Oh, it's a handle.
We're learning about it.
Yes.
It's kind of like Smokey and the Bear thing.
Okay, so Good Learner Repertoire on Instagram and Whole Child Consulting on the web.
And also, you're doing a webinar for us in a few weeks from now, and I'm really excited about that too. So it's on Tuesday, February 5th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For those of you who can join live and those of you who can't, it will be recorded afterwards to view asynchronously.
You mean March 5th, right?
I think
what did I say? Yes, March 5th. It's already, yes. Thank you. This time is like flying by. So Tuesday, March 5th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For those of you who are members, just log in. And for those of you who aren't, just join for the webinar. It's going to be amazing. So you'll be talking about your book. You'll be talking about play and really giving some practical strategies so that no one else, just me, can walk away with a bunch of different ideas. And I'm really looking forward to that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.